Howdy folks, Jamboree here. Welcome to another episode of Film Chums. Joining me as always is my co-host, Viva Becca.
Hello everybody, welcome to the new shelf.
A little context, as it's more than just a new shelf.
Yes, it's a new shelf. I moved to a new living situation, and so if the audio is a lot worse this time, it's because all of my stuff is not unpacked yet, so I'm sorry about that. But you can still see me and the shelf.
The shelf, yay! So we're going to be talking about the Veggietales movies in this podcast. For those of you who don't know, Veggietales is a popular biblical cartoon series created by Big Idea that centers on Bob the Tomato and Larry the Cucumber, who retell Bible stories for kids' entertainment. We'll be talking about the feature films, just the feature films, not the straight-to-video specials. So Viva, did you grow up with the Veggietales cartoons?
No, but I did have the Reliant K cover of Pirates Who Don't Do Anything on my childhood iPod.
Ooh, okay. That's going to make things very special when we get to that film then. I did not grow up with Veggietales. I grew up with an agnostic family, and also Veggietales is not a big thing in the UK. It's more of an American kind of thing. But I have learned that some of my Christian friends in the UK did grow up with Veggietales. So it has a thing over here, but mainly with more dedicated Christian families, like let's say. And would you say that you're a religious person yourself?
No.
Like the stool there. Very dramatic. No, I'm an atheist.
Well, who knows?
Well, I'm an atheist as well. But like I said, I grew up with an agnostic family. But I was the only strict Christian in my family. So everyone else was unsure, and I was the only one that was like, let's do this. And I was the only one that actually got baptized as well. So that's my background. And you may be thinking, well, how can two atheists talk about Christian-themed movies? But the thing is, great movies can be so universal that, like, they can reach both a non-secular audience and a secular audience. Which definitely brings me on to my other question for you. Seeing as we're going to be reviewing two movies from a Christian franchise, what do you think makes for a good biblical movie? What should the standards be?
Well, biblical accuracy is big, because it's an adaptation of events. So being either true to the events or portraying them in a way that stays true to the feeling is important. I think anytime you're making a movie, having it be a good movie is important. So having it look good, having it connect well with the viewer, good pacing.
Because the thing is, a bad religious movie isn't bad because it's religious. It's because it's a bad movie. The first film we're going to be talking about is Jonah. This is their first attempt at making a feature-length film. Bob the Tomato is on a road trip with Dad Asparagus, Laura Carrot, Junior Asparagus, Annie Onion, and two French P-boys. They're on their way to see a Twippo concert, and Laura is bragging that she has a backstage pass, which really annoys Junior. Unfortunately, they all end up in a car accident, and Laura loses her ticket. They then go to a seafood restaurant to work out what to do. While the adults sort things out with the car, the kids find their own table. Laura is very sad that she lost her ticket, and Junior refuses to care about her loss. The parents who don't do anything overhear them. They teach Junior about the importance of mercy and compassion, which leads to them telling the story of Jonah, a beloved prophet for God who was famous around the world. When God told Jonah to bring a message to Nineveh, a city renowned for its corruption, Jonah decided to board the Pirates Who Don't Do Anything ship, who were heading to Tarshish at the time. Also, Jonah can get out of doing God's mission. While on board, Jonah met a caterpillar called Khalil, who wanted to go with Jonah to Tarshish to sell his merchandise. Suddenly an angry storm appeared, which made the pirates panic. Jonah confessed that he caused all this thunder and lightning by disobeying God. Jonah was then forced to walk the plank, and his jump into the ocean caused the storm to end. However, before the pirates could reel Jonah back in, a giant whale swallowed up Jonah and Khalil. While inside the whale, God's angels appeared to sing to Jonah that he's allowed a second chance if he repents to God. The whale spat up Jonah and Khalil right outside Nineveh, where they met the pirates once again, who had gained entrance to Nineveh after winning a cheese snack contest. The group were soon arrested after eating 3 samples, and were sentenced to death in front of the Nineveh king. However, Jonah said that the Ninevites needed to stop committing sins, and they'll be allowed a second chance by God if they repent. He used his escape from the whale as evidence of this. So the king let everyone go and said that the city would improve. The cynical Jonah waited outside Nineveh, believing that they would carry on sinning, and that he would get to watch God destroy the city as punishment. But nothing happened. Khalil refused to wait, and came to his own epiphany about mercy and compassion, as the prophet stubbornly refused to let it all go, and he was left alone to suffer in hateful loneliness. His price to pay for never learning compassion and mercy. So Viva, what did you think of Jonah?
I thought it was okay. It's not the best biblical movie I've ever seen. I think the big thing that helped them along was that they stuffed so many musical numbers into it, because the bits in between were kind of they didn't seem like they had much direction.
It was very uneventful.
Yeah, and they kind of tried to stretch it out by improving stuff, going with random like little threads. Well, it sounded like improv. I'm saying that because it didn't seem it was kind of okay. I didn't care for it.
Well, I'm pretty much on this. I'm on the same wavelength as you. I thought it was just watchable. Not great, but okay. I can't say that I was really into the story being told because, again, not much happens.
Yeah. Well, I watched the movie, the movies with somebody who did grow up with Veggietales, and they enjoyed it more than I did, and they said that part of the charm of the movies is that they just go on these random bits and like can really commit to them even though they're stupid. So maybe that's part of the charm of it.
I don't know.
But sometimes it drags the movie.
Yeah.
I think.
Well, the thing is that a lot of the time it doesn't feel like a movie. It feels like an after-school special. And you can tell that Big Idea, they're very comfortable in the format they've already done. And they didn't really transition to cinema very well, let's just say. Like, it's quite... What I mean is, it's quite surprising this was released in theatres. Like, I would totally get if it was straight to video, but it's really strange to believe that this was put in theatres.
It feels really straight to video.
Oh, it definitely does, yeah. What did you think of Jonah as a character? As a lead hero, even?
Annoying?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, like, I know that that's what happens in the Bible story, but it's like, man, you're stupid. You think that nothing's gonna happen if you just get on this ship? Okay.
I can see why it must have been hard to be faithful to the Bible but also tell a good story at the same time, because the scriptures are so old. We spend this whole film with Jonah, and he's the main character. And I get that he's not meant to be a good person. But when he's the main person, the one you spend the most time with, it's quite aggravating to put up with him because he's so whiny and arrogant, and he's either moaning about the situation he's in or having his ass kissed by his fans. And yeah, I get that being bestowed with the mission to deliver a message to a dangerous city must be really overwhelming. But again, I don't get how I'm supposed to sympathize with him on his adventure. I really don't. I was a little fuzzy on how I felt about Jonah never learning his lesson, because on the one hand it's kind of interesting to see a character who is left to rot in his own malice and bloodlust and hatred. That's kind of dark. Plus at least other characters in the film get to demonstrate compassion and mercy to the audience. But on the other hand, I don't like that we followed this annoying character for the whole movie, only for him to never improve or change. It's kind of like, oh. Thanks, film.
It was a bold choice, to be sure.
Oh, definitely, yeah. Well, the thing is, I enjoyed the side characters way more than Jonah. And...
Did you, though? Did you?
Yeah,
because I hated that fucking caterpillar.
I didn't mind him. I was fine with the side characters, but that probably just says how much I didn't like Jonah himself. And I just kept watching things like, I wish this film was about the other characters.
A film about the caterpillar, though?
Yeah, I know, he's deeply problematic and doesn't shut up, but like...
And he only has like one joke that he just does over and over again.
Yeah, he does, but again, at least he learns a lesson, and...
Does he learn?
Kinda. It shows that he's trying to learn. Unlike Jonah, who's just like, that's it. And I like the pirates. I like the pirates fine. Like they're way more entertaining than anyone really. They're enjoyable. But that's because I'm a big pirate fan.
I thought it was so funny that at the beginning of the movie, like this little child's whole family just abandons him in this sketchy bar, and then he gets approached by these pirates that he's never met before, and they're just like, "Hey, we'll want to hear a little story," and he's just like, "Okay."
Not the best lesson for stranger danger. I get ya.
Yeah, this is what we should be teaching little kids, is when they're alone and some pirates come over, they should just let them do whatever.
So, the film's been praised by critics for its sense of humor. What do you think of the comedy?
Well, I was kind of confused with some of it because I was like, who is the audience for this movie? I mean, there's the whole monologue where they're talking about diversifying your portfolio. And I'm like, well, this is going to be entertaining to toddlers who would be watching this movie. I mean, that was a joke, but it wouldn't really be funny to the audience of the movie, so that's kind of confusing.
That's what I noticed about both Veggietales movies, was that there was a lot of very... I don't know how to word it. They're not adult jokes, but they're also... It's weird. It's a very strange sense of humor, but I will say that out of both movies, I found Jonah to be the funnier one. I laugh more with this one. I can't say I actually remember the jokes I laughed at, which isn't a good sign, but I laughed more than once, and that's a good sign of a comedy.
Well, you could work here for me. That way you could earn more cheese curls.
Oh, that sounds good.
okay.
Yeah.
So, what do you know how to do?
Well, I'm pretty good at lawn darts.
Ping pong. I can play ping pong. Croquette is my specialty.
When do we start? Monday's good for me.
Okay, well, I liked the other one. I thought the other one was funnier.
Interesting. We'll definitely get to the other one, how I feel about it. I noticed that with this one, the humor was very Aladdin-esque.
Okay.
I'm not saying it's as good as Aladdin. I'm saying it was trying to go for an Aladdin kind of feel, with like the mix of modern references in a period setting kind of thing.
Okay. I don't, like, when I think of the humor, I just think about how quickly all of my goodwill was drained away by this stupid caterpillar.
I wouldn't say the caterpillar didn't get many laughs out of me, but the pirates did. The pirates got some good laughs out of me. I
think the problem that I had with the humor of all the characters in the movie was that they were trying to go for the Aladdin-esque thing, where it was a mix of like modern and then this ancient time period, and you didn't know when they were going to throw it in, and it was kind of improv-y and off-the-cuff sounding. But the problem was all of the stuff that they said was actually really predictable in that style of humor. So it wasn't very funny to me because I was like, oh, I knew he was going to say that, so I'm not surprised. I'm not laughing.
I get why preschoolers would find it funny, though. I really do. Like, and they enjoy repetitive
Yeah, well,
humor.
I mean, if you've never seen a movie before, then you would be surprised by the jokes, I guess.
Yeah, sure. So Jonah is also a musical. How did you feel about the songs, Viva? Because I know you said earlier on they were mainly filler.
Yeah, well, they were mainly filler, but they were kind of like little anchor points that you could drag yourself along with the rest of the movie on, because they were fast and they were loud and they kind of woke you up a little bit. And they weren't super complicated, but they were, simple and fun. So, that was good. I mean, I don't know if I would say that I remember any of them.
I don't.
But they were definitely the parts that I enjoyed the most out of the movie. And I appreciate that they actually used them to advance the story.
Yes,
instead
I was
of
going to say that, yeah.
just having a song in there, because I know a lot of these middling to lower tier kids movies, sometimes they just put in songs for no reason.
Yeah, I really liked that. Like each song had a purpose, and even though these songs didn't really stay with me, let's say, and like there's nothing particularly catchy about them, they were fun, they were bouncy, they were lively. And they each had their own genre of music. They were fine. They were totally fine.
Praise the Lord, He's the God of second chances. You'll be floored how His love your life enhances. You can be restored from your darkest circumstances. Our God is a God of second chances.
When it came to a musical number, I didn't think, oh no, not another song. I thought, oh, another song, cool.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. This is the part that I've been waiting for the last 5 minutes. So let's go.
Right. So the film also tries to teach two things: compassion and mercy. Do you think the film handles those topics well?
No, because, and I know that they had to kind of dumb it down because it was for kids, but for one thing, the only crime that they brought up was slapping people with fish, which they thought was way funnier than it actually is. And it's not that big of a crime. And when they were told that was the wrong thing to do, they're just like, oh, okay, we didn't know. Sorry. And it was all too simplified. And also, I feel like, and this is probably just given the time period that the movie was released, but some of the characters in the movie just didn't seem very compassionate or charitable. So it was hard for me to take that message from the film when they were being a little reductive.
Right,
with
okay.
their characters, where it's like, oh, these are all the good people, and they're here. This is the city where all the bad people live, and they're just bad.
I do know that when it comes to Veggietales, they tend to take the more violent aspects of the Old Testament and just replace it with something silly. Like I've seen examples where they use tickling and stuff like that. But I did notice that I don't know how serious that execution fish slapping machine was, because on the one hand they demonstrated it, and they demonstrated it on a vegetable.
That was
it just
so
exploded.
Weird. I was like, what the heck?
And it exploded.
So is that like a person? Or they have regular vegetables?
They have regular vegetables. They use that to demonstrate the execution machine, and it just explodes, which kind of implies, okay, that's going to kill our heroes when they use it. So if that's as far as the city's like willing to go, and the film is basically saying, hey, this genocidal tyrant deserves a second chance, I was like, oh, no. Can we not forgive fascists, please? So that's what rubbed me the wrong way. If they stuck to the whole fish slapping is silly thing, I'd be like, okay, fine, it's just a silly fish slapping man. But the idea that it kind of implied that he was killing people, I was like, movie.
Well, first of all, who demonstrates an execution machine? Come on. And second of all, it's like, I get that. I just don't think that the way that they had the story, where all of the examples were so simple, even like the real world examples were so simple that it would really teach it effectively. Because those are concepts, you know, that you can't just apply really broadly, where it's like everybody deserves a second chance, whether they crashed the car or whether they were genociding their people and like forcing them to work in your cheese factory. So I feel like if they went really simple and they're just like, we're gonna slap them with like a regular fish really lightly, or we're gonna actually kill them, it just doesn't really work because the story is way too simple.
Which I don't mind because of the target audience. I get why they would want to make it very basic. I get why they want to, but I also understand the implications of doing so.
But when you're saying like this movie is going to be about compassion and mercy, like it's a difficult job that you've set up for yourself. I think Prince of Egypt did it better, and that was also a kids movie, so
yeah, absolutely. It
can be done.
Yeah, it can be done. It can definitely be done. But at the same time, is it fair to compare the film to Prince of Egypt, do you think? Because, like, it's DreamWorks Animation versus Big Idea, so... I get what you mean, but at the same time, like, are we being fair?
Well, isn't that, like, new... They're both new studios, and it was both their first feature film or something? Maybe it's just because I didn't grow up with the show or the movies, but it really ticked me off that they didn't have arms and legs. But there would be like a couple random characters in every movie that had arms and legs. So I was like, what the heck? Like, are you gonna have them have arms and legs or not? Like, whenever they try to do something, it's really weird because it's just like floating around next to them, and you're supposed to imagine they have arms and legs.
I was on the fence because on the one hand, yeah, it looks kind of eerie and spooky. It looks ghost-like almost. It almost looks like they've got limbs missing. Their limbs haven't been rendered. But on the other hand, can you imagine them with arms and legs? Can you imagine vegetables with arms and legs and not make them not look scary? I think the best way around that would have been to have like Rayman style hands. But then they're floating as well, so...
I think floating arms and legs would be good. There's just something in me that's really annoyed when I see them, like, hopping around. Because it makes all the characters, like, seem so weak. Like, if you were in that world, you could just, like, stomp on them really easily. Like, it just makes them feel like they don't have any weight or something. And I think it's creepy when their stuff is, like, floating around next to them. And they're supposedly doing things with it, but they have ghost arms.
But at the same time, that kind of can work for an advantage, because then if they look kind of weak and squishy, that makes them more vulnerable and easier to like feel sorry for, I guess. And like maybe the things they come across are like, oh, you've got no chance, you're gonna get squished. maybe that can kind of work.
It didn't make me feel sorry for them though. It made me feel irritated that they weren't walking around properly.
I think the animation is totally fine. It's nothing spectacular, but considering the limitations of animating vegetables, it's maybe the best they could have done. I wouldn't say that it's good enough for a theatrical release, though. It at least looks better than Veggietales did when the studio first started. Oh, and the new Veggietales cartoons go for a more realistic, highly rendered style, and it just looks creepy. So in other words, I feel like this is a good middle ground. I'm fine with this.
Yeah, and we have to remember this is very early days of 3D animation.
Technically, yeah, 2002, so kind of like Ice Age, Monsters, Inc. kind of era.
So they're not like super textured, but there weren't a lot of things that were super textured.
So do you think this movie's good for kids? The target audience?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind showing it to my kid. I would be fine with it. I mean, I wouldn't think very highly of their taste if they liked this better than Prince of Egypt, but I think it's I think it's harmless enough, and like the problems with the compassion and mercy oversimplification, like they're probably going to be so young when they're watching it they won't remember anyway, so.
No, that's what I mean, is that a lot of the problems we're noticing, they're things that we notice as adults. And what kids will see is just a basic, fine film that teaches them to be nice to other people. And that's fine. That's totally fine. I can't say that I was personally invested in it, but considering who the film was made for, it's okay.
Yeah,
It'll
maybe
do.
I've just been watching too many Illumination films. But, I mean, I've seen films that are way, way worse than this
totally,
for kids.
absolutely.
And where the messages are way, way more
Absolutely.
overtly terrible, so.
I can see why children would love this movie's silly sense of humor, the inclusion of comedic pirates, and the bouncy songs that'll make them want to sing and dance. It's fine. It's fine.
I could see it wanting children to, like, do that thing where they like tuck their arms into their shirts and they dance around and then they trip and just fall right into the mantle.
Right, so those are our thoughts on Jonah. We're now going to move on to The Pirates Who Don't Do Anything, the origin movie for the pirates from Jonah. In the distant past, pirate Robert the Terrible, brother of the king, boarded the royal ship and kidnapped Prince Alexander. Robert ordered his crew to find Princess Eloise, but she managed to hide away safely. Unfortunately, the king is away doing something important, so the princess uses her father's mechanical bull to contact heroes to save the royal family. Cut to the present timeline. We meet three misfits called George, Sedgwick and Elliot, who are working as waiters at a pirate-themed restaurant. One night, the lads find the king's bull, which magically transports them to the past, where they meet the princess, who assumes that they're skilled, heroic men, and the three of them agree to help Her Majesty. Can our unlikely heroes rescue Prince Alexander and stop Robert the Terrible's evil plans?
I enjoyed it more than Jonah. I thought that it was a lot easier to get into because they weren't trying to do a message, so they didn't have to cut back to that and break the flow of the story all the time. I was really irritated that they didn't actually sing the Pirates Who Don't Do Anything song in the movie. I was expecting them to either sing it or leave it for the end musical number, or like at least play it over the credits, and they didn't do it. I was like, what the heck? Where is the song? It's not even in this movie.
I definitely enjoyed this way more than Jonah, but to be fair, this is the kind of movie that's made for me. As you know,
Great.
I love pirates, and I love steampunk. That's enough for me.
There's like not anything that's steampunk in the movie.
You've got the mechanical pirate villain, you've got the steampunk bull. That's fine. That's steampunk enough for me. I'm not expecting edgy goth steampunk. That's preschool steampunk, okay? That's fine for me. I like that. So basically what I'm saying is the aesthetics and the setting, that was enough to get me in already. Like, you got me hooked. just from on a surface level, I was hooked.
Okay.
But I think what really invested me was the lead characters were just way more likable and easier to relate to compared to Jonah. Because Jonah is like a prophet of God. You can't really connect with that. But like with the pirates, they're these struggling actors who want to prove themselves. They've got a crappy job. That's something I can really get on board with more.
Maybe. I wish that their determination to actually do something lasted a little bit longer. Like they saved it until right at the end.
Yeah.
And they did spend a lot of the movie just complaining and being like, we're not heroes. We're not heroes. We're not heroes. And I'm like, oh my god, shut up. We've seen this movie before. We know that you're going to figure it out.
At least when they kind of like, it clicks with them, that it's done fine. Like, I kind of like how George the eldest of the bunch, he kind of realizes, no, I need to take this seriously when he bonds with the princess, because he kind of sees his own kids in the princess. I thought that was kind of cute. That was nice. Nice incentive for him to kind of go, oh, ooh. And it makes sense he'd be the first one to mature up, because he's the oldest one.
Well, here's my question. If the princess is supposed to be like his kids, how come the moment at the beginning where we meet his kids is focused on the little son and not his daughter then?
I don't know. I don't know. What you have to keep in mind, whenever I'm praising this film, I'm going to be probably overpraising it because I didn't have that much fun with Jonah. And then this silly, fun Pirates movie comes along and I'm like, okay, yeah. We were saying early on how you prefer the humor in this movie to the other movie. For me, I don't know why. I didn't hate the comedy. I didn't hate the jokes. I just noticed that I wasn't instinctively laughing as much. What did you like about the comedy?
Because they gave it a rest in this movie a little bit. They didn't have, first of all, they didn't have a town where there was only one joke. And they didn't have a character that followed them around that had only one joke. And they didn't feel like they had to be referencing that joke all the time. I mean, they had some stuff that came up a couple times, but just the fact that they didn't always need to be doing that was nice.
I think that's why I liked the Jonah humor, though. Is I liked how punchy it was. It was always throwing a joke constantly. And again, that's the thing. Comedy is very subjective. You can't. It's hard to explain why something's funny. And once you do explain it's funny, you kind of what's the point?
The only joke that I laughed at that was in the two movies was in Pirates when he like presses the button and he gets the rowboat and then he's like, oh, we could have 2 rowboats. That was the only one that I thought was funny.
Hey, we could have 2 rowboats.
Wait!
What did you think of the whole ball thing? Because like I kind of like. I like how they knew how to take advantage of it, but at the same time, there were a lot of scenes that lost a bit of tension because you just thought, well, the ball will just take care of it. But the characters did have their moments of observing things and noticing things on their own, and they didn't need the ball, so I'm kind of all over the place when it comes to my feelings on the ball.
I was a bit unsure of how the ball was supposed to work and the rules of it and stuff. I kind of gave it a pass because I assumed the ball and like the king were like God stand-ins, and so it was like there's a plan, it's all gonna work out. Like, it's a religious company, and that's kind of how they are used to writing their stories, with somebody who's behind the scenes making the story work out. So I was like, I'll give it to them. that's their area of expertise, and they like to be in there, and so
I kind of liked that their way around that was to use the king as a god allegory, because that didn't really clue in for me until the end of the film. I was like, so
when he was like, oh, I was the crab.
Yeah, I kind of liked that. I liked that in a way that is a creative way of sticking to their guns. Like, that was nice. That was kind of cool. I like that.
I do think it was a bit uncharitable of the king to be like, for me, I need to teach these 3 random people a lesson, and so I will put my children in danger so that I can teleport these 3 random guys from the future to now, and then teach them this complicated pirate-themed lesson.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah, that is kind of, when you think about it hard, that's kind of like, ooh, hang on, Mr. King, because he serves as 2 things. He's supposed to be an actual king with kids and an allegory for God. So like, I guess it depends which way you want to look at him. And his atheist will be more leaning towards he's a king.
I mean, as a god who knows how everything's gonna work out too, though, like, you still traumatized your kids a little bit, so
could have at least
that's a bit awkward.
Could have at least let the kids in on your little scheme there, Kingy.
Yeah.
Have a bit of contingency plan. What I will say is another thing that the pirate film has over Jonah is more stuff happens. They come across more obstacles. There's like a variety of monsters for them to face, and yeah, it just seems more eventful, more stuff to get into, and like so you're not waiting for the next song to be entertained. You've got something else there that is not just songs.
I do wish it had more songs in it. I wouldn't mind if there were more songs. But it had some momentum in between the songs, so it felt more like a movie. It really does.
It really does feel way more like a movie. It does, because Jonah felt like an after-school special. And the more it steered itself away from being like Jonah, the more it felt like an actual movie.
I think a lot of that was just like the pacing.
Oh, absolutely. Totally. Much better pacing. Much tighter. Like, it just kept things going. Everything just kept going.
They had a more complicated story that they wanted to tell, so they didn't have to put in so much filler.
But speaking of the songs, I think they're great because they're all pirate themed. What do you think?
I couldn't really listen to the songs because I was waiting for the one song and then they never did it. I think that they were fine. I think they were a similar quality to the first movie.
Grab your root beer, hold it high, whack your shipmate in the eye, yank his hair and break his nose, watch your back, it's Jolly Joe. Grab your root beer, hold it high, whack your shipmate in the eye, yank his hair and break his nose, watch your back, it's Jolly Joe. You got it now!
Yeah, they're not memorable, but they're fun enough to be like, yay!
Yay!
But I'm just gonna be happy with them because they're pirate songs, and that's me solved. That's my standard set.
Nice. Well, okay. I see that you thought up some very in-depth concepts for the review.
You could perform the worst sea shanty ever to me, and I'll still be like, I'm a very nautical loving person, okay? I love my nautical aesthetic, okay? And I love my pirates.
You don't even live next to the ocean.
Oh, thank you for reminding me.
I can literally see the ocean right now.
I can see the ocean. I have a better chance of seeing pirates than you, James. Oh, rubbing in my face. Speaking of pirates, what did you think of the villain? Because unlike Jonah, the villain is way more prominent, a bigger part of the film.
I wanted him to do more, because I feel like they could have done some good jokes with him, but he just did really basic villain lines all the time.
But since your daddy has left you alone and unprotected, I thought we could get reacquainted.
His absence is but temporary. He has business across the Western Sea.
Is that what he told you? He knew I was growing strong in the mechanical arts. Too strong, perhaps, for even him.
I thought it was okay. Again, I just liked that he was like a steampunk mechanical pirate. Yeah, he's nothing special. But what I really liked about how that film handled him was that it did a decent job building him up, and like the reputation he has. Like we meet all these other characters that are saying, oh no, you gotta be careful of him, or the things he's done, or I thought the film did an okay job of like kind of hyping him up. And when you do when we do see him, he has an intimidating presence for a Veggietales character. I'm not saying he's terrifying. Yeah, I'm not saying he's terrifying, but for a preschool movie, I think like, ooh, I can imagine toddlers being like, ooh no. Ooh.
I like that he had arms and legs.
Did you expect did you expect the twist that like he could come off? Like they're more like stilts for him, because I didn't expect that. I thought he was more like a cyborg, and they were built into him. So when it showed, he just hops off them. I was like, oh. So I found that kind of funny.
Yeah, I was not expecting that, especially since his brother was so much bigger than he was then.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a fun reveal. I mean, it was maybe slightly cheating because they made his proportions a lot different to kind of hide that fact. But, you know, whatever, it was worth it, I guess, for the reveal. And, yeah, my main problem with all of his scenes were because he was mostly in the scenes with Alexander, and those scenes were just so stock, basic, sounded like they were just spit out by the script machine scenes. There was, like, nothing in them to latch onto or tell you, like, this is the movie that you're watching or this is the character. It was just, he's a pirate.
Would you say that the animation for this movie is better or worse than Jonah's?
Well, Jonah, they couldn't even keep the light the same in the scene as to what it was supposed to be. In this one, they actually decided to do some scenes at the sunset, so that was more complicated. And they did basement lighting, and they did tavern lighting, and they did regular daytime lighting. But also, just the detail of the backgrounds was better, and the sets were a lot bigger.
It was much more cinematic, and it's like, yeah, that's another reason why it feels more like a movie compared to Jonah. And like, you can tell that it's been 6 years since their last animated movie when you watch it. You're like, yeah, I can. It's not a huge, massive improvement, but like you go, yes, that's a step up.
Yeah, it's the same animation style. It's just a little bit more polished. The colors are a little bit brighter.
So, do you think that this is a good movie for kids? Do you think it's okay to show them?
Yes. I would feel better about showing them this one than I would about the Jonah one.
Is there any reason why you'd be happy with showing that one?
Because this one doesn't have as much of a message, so there's less in the story for them to mess up.
And at the same time, it's still kind of saying, hey, anyone could be a hero. And I like that. I like, it's a bit like the Spider-Man 2 message, like the idea that heroism is a universal thing, and the way they get that across is completely fine.
Yeah, or like the idea that the heroism is more in your choices and less in some sort of thing about you.
As much as I love superhero movies, I really like films that say, hey, you, audience, you can be a good person. You can do this. You can save people. You can look out for people. I'm like,
That's kind of a similar idea as the first one, and I think, yeah, it comes across better in this one.
Much better. It comes across much, much better. And I think that's because, again, the pirates are just more relatable. They have this everyman appeal, and they have much more grounded obstacles to kind of face in their normal everyday life as well before they go on an adventure. We hope you enjoyed our little discussion about the Veggietales movies and our thoughts on them, and if you like, you can share what you think of them. Perhaps you like Jonah more than the pirates who won't do anything, and that's totally fine.
If you're one of the people who likes Jonah more than the pirates, just go down there and click the little subscribe button and unsubscribe to this channel and never watch the show again.
Aww. So yeah, cheerio, folks.
Bye.